It's time now for Scoop, our weekly conversation on international media and the political and economic headwinds confronting the industry. We look at who shapes a narrative, explore journalistic ethics, and ask the reporters the difficult questions. With trust in the press at a nadir, it's a critical eye on a critical profession. A ceasefire between India and Pakistan appears to be holding, but it's a moment to ask, how do journalists report under the fog of war? It's a question we ask with any country in any conflict, and so here it is again after hostilities between neighboring nuclear rivals. Now, on April 22nd, gunmen killed more than 24 Indian tourists in the Indian-controlled part of the disputed region of Kashmir. Pakistan denied India's accusation that it was complicit in the terror attack. The two countries traded accusations, diplomatic and military actions. Now, both countries are among the 30 worst places in the world in terms of press freedom. Reporters Without Borders said press freedom is in a crisis in India, the world's largest democracy. Situation even worse across the border in Pakistan, where the political military elite retains broad control over the media. Now, Kashmir is the only part of India where Muslims are in the majority, and the Indian government has long cracked down on press freedom and dissent in the area. Local journalists face harassment, surveillance, and charges under anti-terror laws, while foreign correspondents are often denied access or deported for critical reporting. Back to the attack. 2 days after that attack, members of India's ruling Hindu Nationalist Party held a roadside demonstration. Journalist Rakesh Sharma asked protesters why they were burning effigies of Pakistan instead of addressing what he called India's security lapses. For that, he was beaten. Local police opened an investigation, but there are no reports of arrests. In addition to Sharma's beating, the Committee to Protect Journalists noted that the 4 p.m. News Network's YouTube channel, which has over 7 million subscribers, was temporarily blocked, as was the independent news organization The Wire. The CPJ also reporting Indian police and Supreme Court lawyer went after pundits and satirists who commented on the attack. The plot and the fog thickens. India and Pakistan's combined population of 1.7 billion people. So residents must be savvy enough to navigate through a media maze to find reliable information. Indian television has more than 400 news channels. Al Jazeera's listening post says that sensationalistic reporting and hyper-nationalistic takes on politics have long dominated the content.
That matters because so many Indian news outlets are now dependent on government advertising revenues to stay in business.
And in India, some of these channels were producing content that aligns with the ruling Hindu Nationalist Party, either banging the war drum or making inflammatory comments.
Bharat is getting battle ready for revenge. It is time for Pakistan to pay back for Pahalgam carnage.
The Hindus who were hunted for simply being Hindus in Pahalgam by Pakistan-sponsored Islamist terror groups and their facilitators in India are the children of a lesser god.
Media in both Pakistan and India accused of repeating government-aligned talking points without providing critical analysis. The stream of misinformation on social media has deepened unease on either side of the border. Let's bring in our guest, data journalist Uzair Rizvi. He is an independent OSINT and fact-checking expert based in New Delhi. Uzair, thank you so much for speaking to Scoop. Given your field, I'm guessing it's been a very busy few weeks. Take us through your average day.
Thank you so much, William. Yeah, I mean, as you rightly pointed out, the last few weeks have been really busy, with the event that happened in Indian administered Kashmir where the tourists were killed and how that got escalated into, the full-time, like a full-fledged sort of attacks between the two countries. And the night of May 6th and May 7th, that's been, quite a busy time for all the journalists and especially for all the fact checkers and OSINT experts who were, scanning the social media and looking at the TV news media for misinformation. And it was for me, it was similar for me as well. I think when the first report of attack came in on May 6th night that, that India has fired some missiles towards the Pakistan, towards across their line of control towards Pakistan. So I think that happened late in the night, and for the following days, for the subsequent days, I think we all were awake, and I was also, I couldn't sleep for 3 nights, looking at social media, looking at TV news, consuming what they are actually reporting, and trying to distinguish between facts and fiction.
But Uzair, I'm wondering how you make sense of it all. I was talking to friends here in Paris, trying to follow the situation back in India, and they couldn't make sense of what was reliable and what was credible. So you're based in the capital. What sort of misinformation were you seeing in India?
But I think, honestly, I have fact-checked the different, events before as well when the Russia and Ukraine thing happened. But I haven't seen the mammoth of misinformation that trickled in the first few hours when this, when this attack happened after India attacked Pakistan. And the misinformation was mammoth, and we were seeing a lot of misinformation social media. As you know, that India has almost 500 million social media and WhatsApp users, which is almost the 10 times the population of France. And different sorts of misinformation was coming in, and it was very difficult for us to verify and, to keep up with the pace of misinformation, which was primarily coming in on WhatsApp and on X, former Twitter. So yeah, it was difficult, and the kind of misinformation I've honestly never seen in the first 24 hours anywhere before.
Yeah, I think it was safe to say overwhelming. I'm not sure if you saw this piece, Uzair, but on News Laundry, Kalpana Sharma wrote a poignant piece. She asked, why didn't India's government issue even a gentle rebuke to any of these TV news channels? She also pointed out on social media that didn't exist in the previous clashes between India and Pakistan, and thus authorities were ill-prepared to control it. Controlling it was impossible. Now, I don't expect you to solve either of these very different issues, but any idea what a step in the right direction would be?
I think also, William, one of the things which you also said, after the first, in the April, the tourist, when the tourists were attacked in Indian administered Kashmir, and ever since, there have been, drum beating on these TV news channels, kind of anticipating that India should attack Pakistan, or it should take a revenge from Pakistan, or the perpetrators. So when this attack happened, the overwhelming, as you mentioned, the overwhelming situation occurred in these TV news channels, and they were sharing anything or everything, and without verifying it. Eventually, it came at a point of time that Indian army and Indian government, through their social media platforms, had to come in without specifying the name of the channels, but they did put out a saying, that they should actually wait for verifying the information and should only trust the information that should, come from the government sources or from the army sources, because some of the misinformation was crazy. For example, some of the TV channels were actually saying that Indian army has crossed over the line of control and entered Pakistan, or some even went to say that, the Air Force has destroyed the port in the city of Karachi in Pakistan. These sort of misinformation was coming in, which was, of course, it was difficult to verify. And then, the kind of it was also sort of creating a propaganda within the Indian audience as well.
Yeah, some of this misinformation crazy. Wasn't there one issue about a video game, Uzair?
Yes. Every time, this is actually nothing new. Every time there's a conflict, I think it happened in Syria as well, during the Gaza conflict, when Taliban took over Afghanistan, Ukraine, Russia, and now again back to India, Pakistan. So there is a video game developed by a Czech company, Bohemia Interactive. The game is called Arma 3, and the visuals basically, simulate a real life experience of a war. So one of the things, what happened was, because most of the conflict between these two armies happened in the darkness and there were no visuals to it, so a lot of social media users, and even I would say the media from both the sides, from both in India and Pakistan, were accused of sharing the video footage from Arma 3, trying to show, that these are passing off, that these are like the real footage. For example, you had footage showing this surface-to-air missiles being fired towards the aircrafts, fighter jets, allegedly showing, that the aircrafts from both the countries were down. And one of the instances was that when the official account of the government of Pakistan posted a video on their X platform trying to claim that they downed an India fighter jet, a French fighter jet, Rafale. They used a clip from this video game, a 30-second clip from Arma 3 video game, just to show that, that footage was from the real incident that happened on the border.
Uzair, I'm just wondering, in terms of media literacy, how savvy or gullible or naive is the average Indian person watching television or on social media? I know it's hard to make generalizations, but with so much content and misinformation, it must be overwhelming. What do you make of the people's chances to try to identify when they're being deceived?
But it's actually, I talked about the numbers of social media and WhatsApp users in India, which is mammoth. There are digital literacy and social media literacy campaigns which are being happened. I am too part of such campaigns where I train journalism students and even journalists. But I think, it comes in between the social media users both being naive because they didn't really know what the real information was, and they were sharing and everything that was coming in. And also there's this part from the media as well, because most of them are, they are verified journalists. There are huge TV houses, even with their own in-house fact-checking departments, but still they were, they were liable of sharing misinformation as well. And even some of the journalists I personally know who shared misinformation, they have hundreds and thousands of following on Twitter, and they are been there for many years, and they've also been trained in media literacy. But despite the fact, I think it was also in a race to break something first, because as we go back in time, in the past 2 weeks, how the Indian journalists and the media have been covering this war. So they were actually anticipating something sort of this happen. And as soon as something sort of this happened, everybody jumped on it, just hopping on the news and trying to share everything that was just coming in without verifying the facts, so that they could be the first one to break that news.
Indeed, the lesson there that no one is infallible, even the best-meaning, well-intentioned journalists, not to mention the bad actors. Uzair, thank you so much for your time. Uzair Rizvi joining us from New Delhi. And that brings us to our quote of the week. Writing an opinion piece in the Washington Post, Indian journalist Rana Ayub said, if a ceasefire becomes a pretext for stifling dissent and rewriting events in real time, then it is peace in name only. Until both India and Pakistan allow the truth, however inconvenient, to emerge alongside diplomacy, real peace will remain elusive. That ultimate casualty in this conflict is not just human lives, but the truth itself. That's it for this edition of Scoop. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned to France 24.